RM Civic. Followed by J. Simpson on that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak, and if I speak beyond 3 minutes, cut me off. I'm a general surgeon. Nick Parentsovich is my name. I've practiced in New Hampshire for over 30 years, trained in Boston, had 8 years in private practice in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Had 2 stints in the military, 1 active duty as a surgeon. Didn't see much trauma there. Then at the VA at the end of my career, didn't see much trauma there, firearm or not. However, in Lawrence, Mass, that was a fellowship in trauma, particularly in firearms, because when I got there in '80, pretty quiet town, very diverse. I'd see a handgun injury once a month. Personally, I wasn't on call all the time, but I'd have to deal with a handgun injury. A lot of knives, and by the end of 8 years, it was totally different. It became the epicenter, if you might remember, of the drug dealing and heroin and cocaine for all of New England. Lawrence was the place. And at the same time, we had very increase in both velocity and ballistics. The ballistics of firearms was totally different. One of the reasons I came to New Hampshire was to get away from that.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Representative, would you close the door for us so that we can have the...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you guys close the door?
Frankly, I don't like being out in front of you. I found that very nerve-wracking. I'd much rather be in an operating room. And I am retired right now, but for the last 4 or 5 years I have 2 jobs. One is I teach medical students, and the other one is I work part-time for the Board of Medicine as a physician investigator. And malpractice has been mentioned 3 times here today, and everybody was shaking their head, and so was I, because it is a big problem. But when you mention malpractice statistics, we need to know whether it's a claim or a suit or a settlement or whatever. At my job, I know at the very end, when we discipline docs for malpractice, there were 18 of those last year. So you can compare that to all your other death statistics. That's all I know. But it's an issue. No question malpractice is an issue. But you've got to look at what you're talking about when you just say malpractice. There's all kinds of varieties. Moving on.
We're talking about firearms.
No, I got it. So getting back to firearms, the reason I'm up here is Dr. Cohn mentioned something too, and that was something's happening in the medical community that I've never seen before. My other job of teaching medical students, I've got to keep up with the literature. Frankly, the board job, I've got to keep up with the literature. I have not seen the medical literature ever explode like it has pretty much after, what's it, a year ago tomorrow that happened, the Parkland thing. It exploded after that. It exploded a little bit after Sandy Hook, but it's exploding. And the NRI came back right after my organization. I'm a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. 3 days after my organization came out with a position paper in early November, 3 days later, and it wasn't coincidental, the NRA basically told all docs to stay in their lane. That you self-important, self-serving docs need to stay in your lane. And I think that's why you're going to see in the newspapers, certainly in the medical literature, more docs getting actively involved. Not just Len and I, but a lot of docs. So that's just a warning. And my handout is basically 2 papers that were virtually published in the last 2 weeks, actually the last week. And New England Journal, which is the most read journal in the world, not alone New England or anywhere, the article's in there, but it's basically outlining what I just said, the reaction from the medical community. I don't think it's going to go away this time. The second article is from the American College of Surgeons, my organization. It's traditionally been just an educational organization. But they've changed. And that position paper I urge you all to read. It supports background checks. So I'm supporting this bill, even though I don't know much about background checks, which is why I'm nervous being up here. But I want to say something about this paper that I want you to all read. It took 5 years, because it all started after Sandy Hook, for the college to put this together. And the way they put it together was interesting. They have 22 surgeons co-authored this paper from 16 different states. 18 of them are gun owners. 9 of them are members of the NRA. They all sat down for 5 years and came out, what makes sense? Because after all, when you are shot, whether you're the victim or the perpetrator, It's me, the general surgeons, who gets called first. So we get to see you first and figure out what's going on. I know malpractice is a problem, but you all have a right to see nobody if you get sick, and you have the right to see nobody if you get shot. But most people still go get help. I still get called.
Sir, would you please address the committee?
Yeah, I'm just telling you. So the answer is, those who take care of you are concerned about this issue. Concerned enough that even a group that I think has representatives throughout, and most of them gun owners, 18 out of 22, have strong feelings. And I think you need to read the paper, and that's all I'm asking.
Mr. Chairman. I've been a very good boy, Mr. Chairman.
It sounds good.
Thank you. I am limited in my questions, but I do have a question for you, sir. You kept bringing up Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Is your support of this bill because of Lawrence, Massachusetts?
No, I only brought it up because that's my only really extensive experience taking care of patients who were damaged by firearms. That's it. I left Massachusetts, and I'm glad I did back then. And I'd hate to see Salem or Lawrence or Manchester become Lawrence, Massachusetts. But it could happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Croc TV.